I was selling shoes. So I worked with a really high-end company out of Italy. I've always been really interested in technology. I started my career in college as a computer science major. I used to run a bulletin board when I was in high school where people actually called in, promoted to a sales manager role, and they asked me to move out to Phoenix. I opened up a sales office in Phoenix, then Dallas and New York. And within like a 4-year period, 3.5, I went from joining a company that was 70 employees to having employees report up to me through 6 sales managers. No idea what I was doing. I saw a recent LinkedIn post where the comment, Sarah swoops in, she's like, baby Brad. And I was like, here we are. This is not going away. Every month we have what we call plant the flag winners. You can think of it as a employee of the month type of recognition. The industry is littered with software solutions that nobody is using because you're not getting adoption for purchase because it's 5 extra clicks. We're using a proprietary solution. They moved over to Denicon. And with those kind of productivity enhancements, I'll call them, they had a team of 80 that were working in their RCM department. Practice management used to be all about it allowed you to run your business. Humans are complex, which is why the general intelligence AI is probably so far away. It's still very much let me present to you what the next most viable option is or the next prediction of what this response should be based off of the model that we run things on. It's still not actually doing the thinking on its own. Hopefully none of the AI companies are advocating for replacement of clinical assessment by trained dentists who have gone to school. I don't think anybody would make that argument. Or climate challenges, energy challenges that we have, and that we use some of that ingenuity to solve really big issues that are out there today.
All right. Welcome to episode 24 of the DentMint podcast. Today, we're talking with Mike Huffaker. Mike, how do I say your last name? I got it wrong.
Very good. It's very easy to make it sound like profanity, and you didn't do that, so I appreciate that. But Huffaker, like acre of land.
Huffaker, yes. Mr. Huffaker. Yes. Perfect. Excellent. The CRO at Planet DDS and host of the Dental Economist Show. He's a leader in cloud-based dental tech. He's scaled high-performing sales teams. He's helping dental practices grow smarter. Let's dive right in, of course, with Mike. And we also have Sarah. Welcome, Sarah. Welcome back, Sarah. Let's dive in. Mike, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you for having me. Excited to be here and have a nice conversation.
Absolutely. So let's do a quick intro in terms of who you are, what you've done, your story, and then we're going to ask questions. I know Sarah's got tons of questions. Masood always has amazing questions. Dr. Milad has tons of questions. I got a few that we can go into, but give us a little bit of who you are for people who are just tuning in.
Yeah, sure. So, 11 years ago, I was selling shoes. So I worked with a really high-end company out of Italy, was in charge of distribution to key accounts, Nordstrom, Neiman's, Saks, Zappos was one of my accounts that I opened. And I'd been doing that for about a decade. I worked in the men's shoe department when I was going to college. And I was looking around and I was like, you know what? I was living in Northern California at the time. I had just had children, was traveling a ton for that job. And all my friends were working in tech. And I said, I've always been really interested in technology. I started my career in college as a computer science major. I used to run a bulletin board when I was in high school where people actually called in, had to get an extra phone line from my parents that used the modem to dial in and to download stuff from a CD-ROM that was plugged into my tower. So I love technology. So I made a career pivot. I was around 34 at the time, started shooting resumes off to all these different technology companies, was firing them off into a black hole. Everybody's like, no, thank you. On the 34-year-old with no technology sales experience, we will pass. Eventually found a startup, and I was living in the Bay Area, and the startup was fancy iPad cash registers. And so, it's pretty ubiquitous in the world today. You see them at all sorts of different restaurants and retail locations. But it was new at that time. It was 2014. iPad had just come out a few years previous. And so they gave me a shot. They're like, sure, you can be an account executive here at our company. I took about a 75% pay cut with what I was doing before, jumped into tech, and I was like, well, I can't fail, right? It's not an option. I got 2 kids at home. So started to sell as an AE. About 7 months later, I got promoted to a sales manager role, and they asked me to move out to Phoenix. I opened up a sales office in Phoenix, then Dallas and New York. And within a 4-year period, 3.5, I went from joining a company that was 70 employees to having employees report up to me through 6 sales managers. No idea what I was doing. just kind of like making it up and learning as I was going along. Then tried to catch lightning in a bottle, went to a really early stage startup. It's myself, 3 other people, and an army of engineers in India that were developing self-service kiosk technology. It's pretty cool. Scaled up that team over the course of 2 years, and then Planet DDS came knocking. And that was 6 years ago. They said, hey, we're looking for a VP of sales to scale our sales efforts in this dental SaaS cloud software company. I said, I'm sorry, you said dental? I'm good. Thank you. And then I actually started to learn about the dental space. I was like, this is an awesome industry with an amazing opportunity. And it's certainly proved to be true. So I joined Planet DDS 6 years ago, almost 6 years ago. It'll be 6 years in September. So 5.5. I had 2 people on the team, Johnny Adams, who Sarah knows, who we'd kind of joke is like the mayor of dental. One other person that was doing solo sales, and one person in marketing in his first job out of college. And that was sales and marketing for Planet DDS circa 2019. We're now about 10 times larger, about 52 people in my organization, sales and marketing, account executives. We service half of the largest 25 DSOs in the dental space and have made a tremendous amount of traction in delivering our products into the market and really serving the industry. So been an awesome ride and really, really have enjoyed the experience thus far.
Mike, that's great. That's really great. Is it what they say that once a salesman, always a salesman? And I have a following question with that.
Sure.
Follow-up question. Was it easier to sell shoes or tech? Because you started there and then you moved into shoes.
So the shoes that I sold were an average price point of $700 a pair. And this was a decade ago now at this point. So now the average price point's like $1,200 plus. I had to sell by influence in that role. And I would say that from the size of the transaction, people would come into the stores specifically looking for shoes. So you just had to guide them in the right direction. Technology is certainly a more complicated sale. And there's really the opportunity to be a consultant in that process. There's only so much you can say about a pair of shoes. There's a lot you can talk about software and the outcomes that it can drive for an organization. And yes, once a salesperson, always a salesperson, sure, but everybody is sales is my firm belief. Like if you have a role in any company doing anything, at some point you're needing to influence others and communicate clearly in order to drive projects, outcomes, whatever the case may be. So there's really no option to escape sales if you want to be successful in business.
Well, Mr. Mike, me and you have something in common. I sold shoes in Nordstrom for almost 2 years.
Oh, which Nordstrom?
Tyson Corner, Virginia.
Yeah, store 600, I think, or 620, something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's very specific.
Yeah,
it was.
Believe it or not, I sold women's shoes.
Sold women's shoes. Fantastic. Yes. Listen, so Nordstrom was a fantastic experience to have. And I think even moving into tech, I brought a lot of the experience and learnings from Nordstrom. One of the biggest things they had was overpromise or underpromise, overdeliver. And it was like, look, if you're going to tell somebody that you're going to be delivering them a new pair of shoes or their alterations are going to be ready or something, you always deliver by the date that you share. Like you are always following up and following your word. And they're just a huge customer service oriented company. And so you can't help if you spend any significant time there. I spent 5 years there doing college, managing the mentoring department while going to school. You can't help but exit that experience having a real kind of passion for customer service, which you can carry with you into anything that you do, including dentistry. So it's a pretty great opportunity. I love working with people that used to work at Nordstrom because there's like that initial immediate kind of like connection that you have and you recognize like where the background's from.
Yeah, I truly enjoyed it, man. It was like and then the Nordstrom also, the other thing that they had that was always fascinating, it was like you couldn't tell no to anybody. They're like, no, it's not an option.
That's right.
You'll figure it out.
Which could be frustrating when you knew you were being taken advantage and people were returning stuff like that just got a little crazy. But that's part of the ethos of the company. They would always tell the story about the tire being returned to the Nordstrom, Alaska. So Nordstrom took over a tire shop and built a store up there. And then somebody came back to return a tire from the time when it was actually previously being a Nordstrom, and they actually took the tire back. And they were like, yeah, sure, we'll take this back. So that was like one of the Nordstrom lore stories of client customer service. But yes, you had to make sure that you were always taking care of people. And the benefit was far greater than the challenges that you faced as a result. So it ended up being a net positive for the business too. Sure, there's sometimes going to be people that take advantage of it, but ultimately the goodwill that you have with the clients that you build relationships with is much greater than those that want to take advantage of the system.
I have a question, Mike. And hello, I'm pretty sure this is the very first time that maybe you and I have like officially or virtually spoken. I
don't know how that's happened, but I think you're right.
Right?
Yes.
Yes. So
Shocking.
I'm so excited for this. And so I did a little bit of digging and your origin story. That might be a cheesy way to say it, but your origin story is fascinating. But I think maybe there's like really one interesting part that you may have left out. And I heard a rumor that maybe when you went to interview with the CEO of Planet DDS, did you walk?
I did. Well, so I like to, be active. And I flew out to Orange County, and I live in Phoenix now. So Phoenix is hot. That morning, I had woken up at 4:00 in the morning. I'd gone out in the neighborhood, and I'd just gone jogging. I was like, all right. That was my prep for getting on the plane and flying out to meet Eric in Orange County. I landed in the John Wayne Airport in Orange County, and I looked on my Apple Watch, and it was 78 degrees that day. And I said, wow, what a delight. Like 78 is amazing. And then I looked at where the office is, and it was 1.3 miles away. So I'm like, that's nothing. I already ran 3.5 miles this morning. Let me just walk. So with my 25-pound backpack, I don't know what I have in my backpack to make it all so heavy, but it's really heavy all the time. It's like rucking. I didn't think about this tactical error. So I just throw on the backpack. I start walking to the office, and like halfway there, I'm sweating, like real bad sweating. Fortunately, I'm wearing a black polo. But I was like, well, I made a mistake. And then, you get to that awkward point where you're like, can I call an Uber? Is the Uber going to be like, hey, dude, this is like 3/4 of a mile. I'm not going to drive, nobody's picking up that ride. So it was like the point of no return. So I'm like, well, I guess I'm forging ahead. So I get to the office, and this is my final interview for this now role that I want in the dental industry with the CEO of the company. And I duck into the bathroom and trying to do the air dryer thing, where like you're trying to dry your stuff. And like, of course, it's not going to work in the time that I have. And so yeah, I was just kind of wet, damp, if you will, a little bit clammy. And I walked into the office, and the first person I see there is Eric. And I was like, hey, how you doing? I was like, well, you know what? I'm going to address this head on, because otherwise, let's not just pretend that I'm not the sweaty guy standing in front of you right now. That's even more awkward, I think. So I said, Eric, I apologize. I've made what I realize now is a tactical error. He's like, well, what's that? I was like, I decided to walk from the airport. And he goes, why would you do that? It's like, okay, well, so much for sympathy. And I was like, I don't know. Maybe I was being frugal. And he's like, yeah, next time take the Uber. And then we walked to his office and sat down. And, the interview at that point went well enough that I was able to get the job. But it was one of those things where now I laugh at it. But in the moment, when you have those embarrassing things that take place, I was not enjoying it. I was like, this is not where I thought I was going to be at this moment in time, in this state and this conditions. Anyways, that was the story of the first time I actually met Eric in person.
Very memorable, Mike. I mean, people are still talking about it, so.
It was very memorable. I learned later that if there was anybody that I was going to run into in that state who wasn't actually going to care at all, it is Eric, which is probably why we work so well together and have for so many years now. The first dental show that I went to was ADSO when I was officially an employee of Planet DDS, and it was in Orlando. And I land, and I was like, look, I think we're going straight to this hotel. It's like the Omni or something. And from what I've heard, people at dental shows, they dress. And, that was new for me. People in restaurant hospitality, not so much. And that's where I came from. So, I was wearing slacks and a button-up shirt, which is not really how I like to travel, but I did because I thought this is what the expectation would be for me. And I'm meeting Eric at the baggage claim, and he walks up, and he went to Virginia, and he's wearing a pair of Virginia mesh basketball shorts with some old sneakers and kind of like a ratty Planet DDS t-shirt. He's probably not going to like that I'm sharing this all that much. And I'm like, hey, dude, aren't we walking through the lobby of this fancy hotel where all of our potential clients and prospects are going to be hanging out? And he's like, yeah, I'll go up to the room and change. It's fine. And so I said, all right. Ever since then, I've never traveled, I don't think, in a dress shirt since. So, you learn what the limitations and expectations are, and then you kind of lean into this.
I love that. And thanks, by the way, for I think Brad Hughes is legitimately upset with me for calling him Baby Brad.
Well,
I'm just kidding.
Speaking of leaning into things, I've seen that you really tried to make that reference stick. I saw a recent LinkedIn post where the comment, Sarah swoops in. She's like, Baby Brad. And I was like, here we are. This is not going away. But you know what? Brad seems to me like the type that he's just going to shake that off and keep doing what he's doing. So I have a lot of respect for him in that way.
Same Z's. Oh my gosh, I have other questions. Do you?
Yeah, go for it.
But okay, but like, you guys all have like smart questions and stuff. I'm like, how can we like have fun and make this interesting? It's the end of the day. And so I did some digging around. And so I was sent a picture, and I'm curious as to what these are.
Oh, okay. So the Minions. Yes. All right.
Minions.
So first off, we
Okay.
post this stuff on LinkedIn, but this is maybe a story that'll give you a sense of what the culture is like at Planet DDS. And driven by really amazing people, like I think we talked about maybe before we started recording today. So Johnny Adams, who has been around for forever, she enjoys a cocktail or two every now and then. And, we happen to be in Oahu or in Hawaii. It's President's Club a year ago. And this is an annual celebration that we do within our organization for all of the top achievers, not just in the sales org, but we every month we have what we call Plant the Flag winners. You can think of it as a Employee of the Month type of recognition. Particular individuals are nominated by their peers for exhibiting our core values. We choose 2 each month, and at the end of the year, 4 with their +1s are also invited to join the President's Club sales incentive trip. So we're in Oahu, we're walking back. We just took a sunset cruise. It was beautiful. We had a whole pod of dolphins swimming in front of the boat. We saw a mother whale and her baby breach, and it was like magical. And so Johnny decides to celebrate the magic by buying a pair of cheap Minions glasses from some store on the side of the road. If you meet Johnny's wife, Gail, she's like, well, this is the most Johnny thing ever. Like, we don't know why. There's no real explanation as to what was going on in his mind at the time. But he puts them on. We're all like, dude, those looks kind of cool. I don't know. You look like a little Minion. So he starts taking pictures and sending it around to everybody. And then other people put the glasses on. So everybody on the enterprise team buys a pair of these glasses. I order them on Amazon. Everybody's got their order. And now whenever we're out and about, it's almost like, hey, thinking about you guys. And you take a picture with your Minion glass and then you share it with the team. And so we have all of these pictures of people in random places, family vacations, wherever you can think of, Colorado, in the snow, in Hawaii, down in Mexico, wearing Minions glasses. And then, of course, we bring them when we go do things as a group together. So at Dykema last year, we went to Red Rocks. We've got a picture with all of us wearing the Minions glasses. And it's just kind of become a thing. The funny thing about it, actually, is we post on LinkedIn and we do different things. People are like, who are these idiots? What with their silly glasses? And we do look like idiots with the silly glasses, but we don't care because we are enjoying it. And we were in this meeting with a private equity group in Chicago, and we're in the beautiful boardroom. And one of the guys, one of the partners, and everybody's, the private equities, the Blue Blazer Club, right? Everybody's got a blue blazer. They all kind of, very dressed up, formal. One of the guys is like, hey, don't you guys want to take a picture with your glasses? And we're pitching Denticon for some of their groups that they own. And they're like, hey, you guys want it? That's a great view out that window right there. Why you guys? So we did. So we all pull our glasses out. We walk over, by the way, there's 4 of the enterprise team for that meeting at that point in time. And we put them all on and we take our picture, encouraged by the very formal private equity partners who had seen it on LinkedIn, which I thought was pretty fantastic. And of course we won the deal as well. So.
Well, it's like branding. We talk about how culture really company culture kind of bleeds into branding. And the fact that these blue blazers, I love that, that these PE serious people knew that. And that's so cool. And just nice that they gave you that opportunity. The glasses kind of reminds me, it's like the Planet DDS version of Flat Stanley. Isn't that where people... Yes. The little flat Stanley that you bring everywhere and take pictures. So that's really neat. Most of the people, well, not most, all of the people that I talk to that work at Planet DDS are just so happy to be there. One of which is one of my good friends, Beth Gaddis. So I know she is just a delight.
We love Beth. Yeah, we debate who the mayor of dental is, if it's Beth or Johnny. And so we're like, well, there's the governor now and there's the mayor. We can't figure it out. They both know everybody. If you want a real treat, walk down any show floor, Dicoma, ADSO, DEO, you name it, with Johnny and Beth, and just meet everybody that you didn't know before, because they can literally introduce you to each person. Johnny's pretty spectacular. He will, when he knows that there's an attendee list, he creates almost like little baseball cards for the different people that will be there. They'll put pictures on them, put notes. Used to be at this customer that we've worked with, used to be here, now moved here, knows this person. And he uses that in his conversations with folks. And so he'll study them and look at them. And, he already knows so many people. But on top of that, he'll walk in and say, hey, you used to be with DCA and now you're with this group. And, DCA has been a long time customer of ours. How are things going with X, Y, and Z? And, it's what's going on with Timmy? He knows all of it. And it's really, really impressive. And it's not a show. He actually cares, which is awesome, because his other side hustle is helping people find jobs in the dental space. And I probably 5-6 times throughout the course of the year, he's like, hey, I know this person. They used to be in charge of RCM at this group. They're currently looking for a new role. He'll talk to different prospects that he's working with. He'll talk to different people that he's sold our product to in the past and help find them new roles within the industry, which is pretty fantastic. I was like, Johnny, you should charge like the finder's fee as like a headhunter. And of course, he won't do that because he's doing it out of the goodness of his heart, which is pays greater dividends in the long run than anything else. But those are, some of the types of people that we have in the company right now. And it's a real something to be very grateful for, the opportunity to work with folks like.
Maybe a better term for him would be the saint of dental, and
yeah,
Beth
maybe
can have him mayor.
Yes, that could be a good one. We'll rebrand.
I'm really good at naming people. Okay, as we all clearly know.
Yes, you've proven that. Yes.
Goodness. Well, those are, gentlemen, please, those are my questions. You guys probably have super smart, amazing questions. And I'm just like, so what's your favorite color and stuff? All the important things.
So Mike, I had a very good question. What's your favorite color? No, I'm just kidding.
Hamster size whale or whale size hamster? Which do you prefer?
Now we're getting to the hard hitting stuff here. I love it.
Yeah, Mike, I just wanted to know. I mean, we do sales all day. You meet a lot of salespeople. You sit with clients. What's value in the dental industry right now? Where's that shifting?
From a product perspective, or can you be a little more specific with the question? Like,
what do practices find valuable when acquiring a software?
Okay, so I think there's a lot of buzzwords these days, and some of them are AI and automation, and there's a lot of benefit that you can get from AI and automation, and really kind of the holy grail that I think most software companies are trying to march towards is removing monotonous tasks that frequently take place in a dental practice that bring no joy to the person doing them. So you're going to get no objections from an RCM leader if they are suddenly removed of the obligation of posting to the ledger when they get claims back. Like there's so much that just happens over and over and over again in dental that people are trying to replace. And so right now, value is found in any tools that allow you to reduce the burden off of your team. There's, of course, in the dental space, especially in DSOs, there's a line item budget cost for everything, right? And so already you have a budget cost for your practice management software, even if it's a legacy solution on-premise or fragmented environment where you have a multitude of solutions. You still have your maintenance fees and your other elements. Hopefully you're backing up to the cloud somewhere. You've got your IT components to it. You probably tie in 4 different softwares to that solution as well to handle your marketing, your patient communication. Maybe you've got some special tool for call coaching, or you do something related to RCM. So there's this whole kind of ecosystem that every practice, has. So people right now find value if you can simplify that for them, if you can provide excellent integrations, because even within that ecosystem, most people are tying into other solutions in a very haphazard way that oftentimes the integration is so poor, it creates more work than it solves for. The industry is littered with software solutions that nobody is using because you're not getting adoption for the purchase because it's 5 extra clicks, or it's integrated and extracting data, but it doesn't write anything back, or you have to open this other window or this other window, or you just have somebody that's like, this sucks and I don't want to use it. And so finding value right now is providing platforms that can tie into a multitude of solutions that also offer the ability to maintain the workflows that you want without having to go outside into other options. It's a big focus that we have at Planet DDS. It's providing a platform that has a ton of innovation always taking place while recognizing we can't be all things for all people, while building the ability to connect to other solutions in the marketplace, allowing our customers to take advantage of best-in-class solutions and doing it in a way where you don't have to leave the practice management software in order to get the benefit. So examples of that, integration with Pearl. Pearl has an integrated overlay inside Planet DDS. So you capture the image, you take the X-ray inside Planet DDS. It runs through Pearl's machine learning. It returns the findings and presents it inside Planet DDS, Denticon. You don't need to open a separate window to see the caries detection, the bone loss, and all the pathologies that are offered. It's just right there. We see that the adoption of AI is decreased dramatically if you're forced to log into the AI software. If you can just keep it inside the practice management software, then people actually use it. And there's a tremendous benefit to that because you're then building additional trust with your patient, and there's a lot of positive outcomes. That's an example. We have a really tight integration with Dental Exchange. Dental Exchange has its own software. You can log into it. Dental Exchange now runs 80% of dental claims plus in the space after the Change Healthcare incident. So they're doing most claims. However, not all integrations are created equal. And so in many different software solutions, like, yes, you can submit the claims, you do it through Dental Exchange, you log into Dental Exchange, you do all of this in Planet DDS and Denticon. You don't even know that it's really powered by Dental Exchange because everything functions inside the software. So you can batch claims, submit, the attachments take place. You can attach images if you need to. It auto scrubs claims, it puts the payer rules in, it does auto posting 835s on the back end. So, you can set your thresholds, and if it's met with a match, it'll auto post it to the ledger. And so those are things that people find value in. We had one of our customers, West Coast Dental. They're in California. They had 50-something offices. They were using a proprietary solution. They moved over to Denticon. And with those kind of productivity enhancements, I'll call them, they had a team of 80 that were working in their RCM department. It went down to 49. So they were able to reallocate those resources to providing better patient experiences, making sure the patients were coming through the door. They had 12 people that were just in charge of posting. That went down to 8. So these are real savings and value that you can get. It's no longer just about connecting the line item on the budget. You're actually selling into improved efficiencies, better top line opportunities, and a reduction in headcount. So for a long time, dental is very, very just kind of myopic when they're purchasing things. It's like, this is expensive. Is it expensive? Tell me why it's expensive. And is it expensive if it allows you to decrease your labor costs? You no longer have to be turning people over so quickly and having that replacement cost because there's less of them. Is it expensive if it's able to ensure that patients are walking into your practice and having a better experience? Is it expensive if you're able to automate these tasks? No, not really. It's not. It's just the notion historically, from what I can tell, is that practice management used to be all about just it allowed you to run your business. But the shift in the paradigm is it actually now helps you run your business. And so it's just, you need to look at it in a different way than it was before. That was a really long-winded, wordy answer to your question, but hopefully some good things out of that.
No, that was amazing. And it made me come up with more questions now, if you don't mind.
I love it. Let's do it.
How do you price a dental software?
Okay, so in the world of SaaS, margins are important. You generally expect to have high margins in SaaS software, 70, 75%. There's a lot of pass-through costs in what we provide. So there's a cost that goes to Dental Exchange because you just buy it directly from us. If you buy the AI, you buy it from us, but it's, there's a pass-through cost from Pearl. If you want to do text messaging, patient communications, Twilio is the engine that runs that on the back end. So there's pass-through costs there. But the notion with cloud and with SaaS is that while it is an ongoing subscription, you also gain the benefit of all of the future innovation. So there's no need to, at any point, re-up and purchase the newest version of whatever on-premise software is and then go through all the change management involved in actually installing and updating 50 servers across your organization or 150 servers, you get the latest, greatest all the time, and support is included in that. And so you price it based off of what you need to charge in order to run your organization and have a viable, profitable business. And our best partners understand that like there is a value to not trying to get the lowest cost in your software, because it actually allows that particular provider to continue to invest, which provides you a better future outcome. So in many ways, the right SaaS software provider partner, that product becomes more valuable over time, not less. So the day that you buy it should be the least valuable to your practice it ever is. A year from then, 2 years from now, should be even more valuable, because the innovation and the development never ends. There's new releases that come out every few months. So it's just a completely different mentality from legacy server-based software, which the dental space is still littered with all over the place, all of which was created initially for single location practices that they then have tried to patch together with different tools that sit on the top that make it viable for multi-location groups. But the reality is none of it was really done with enterprises in mind. And so that's something that sets us apart. And as a note, not all cloud means enterprise either. Like just because it's cloud doesn't mean it's actually viable for multi-location. You have to have a strategy to deploy software for multi-location that meets the needs of enterprise engagements.
That's amazing. That's a very good way to put it. And the other thing I was going to ask about AI that you just mentioned, every company in dental, not just in dental, every company in the world has an AI thing attached to it, like AI assistants in some sort, AI agents. Which ones do you think that have that AI name in there? They are delivering a true value with it. How is it with Planet DDS besides the integration with Pero? I saw that there's also an AI agent, something that, you can look up the patients and a bunch of things you can do.
So AI Assist is powered by Pearl. It's a new product that we released. And what it allows is when you log into Denticon, the dashboard that Pearl has that scrapes the scheduler and identifies any potential treatment opportunities is native inside Denticon. So again, it is preventing somebody from having to go into a different solution, and it's keeping all of the really important actionable data or front and center for the doctors and for the staff to understand where those opportunities are with the patients that are coming into the practice that day. Where do I see a lot of value in AI? So, we all know about LLMs, and I think a lot of people think of LLMs as like, well, it's good for helping me write job descriptions and like cheating on my high school homework and writing essays for me, writing, poor LinkedIn copy for those that don't like make any modifications or editing it for their own purposes. And it's like in the dynamic world of ever-changing dentistry. And you're like, okay, AI. But, there's going to be a lot of great outcomes that you are going to see. So one of the things we're working on is, people are now getting used to how you query AI with large language models. You get answers based off of a huge data set when you're looking at any of the big ones like ChatGPT or Gemini. But in a particular dental organization, you'll have the ability inside Denticon where you can query like you do with an LLM, but only on the data that is related to your organization. So instead of trying to go and run a report in analytics, people are just going to start asking questions like, what was the production for this provider from November through January by day? Like, sure, and then it'll pop it up for you. You're not going to have to go try to find that report and run something. And so you'll have the ability. How many times did Mike Huffaker cancel his appointments over the past 2 years? Oh, he canceled 8 times. Yeah, this guy sucks. Okay. Like we're going to need to double book anytime we want to schedule him on the calendar because he's terrible. And so that's going to be, I think, a really big feature that people are already used to using that hasn't really found its way into the practice management world, that I think is going to provide a huge benefit. I think all of the phone call reception stuff is super interesting. And once it gets to the point where the patients don't sit there screaming, I want to talk to a human. I want to talk to a human. It's going to be really, really beneficial. Right now, there's like that balance. What percentage of calls that originate with an AI agent end up finishing with the AI agent versus needing human interaction? When that passes some percentage scale, and I don't know exactly what it is, it probably depends on the practice and what their threshold is and what their staffing scenarios are, then that becomes super valuable and super useful. So I think we'll see really good benefit there. On the RCM side, eligibility is, really, really a hot topic these days. Like, look, it sucks to pick up the phone and make a phone call and spend 20 minutes trying to ask somebody a bunch of questions. It's terrible that the payers don't just make it easier to get that information in the first place. Like, there's nothing technically prohibitive about making that information more available to everybody and just agree on like a standardized format. Like guys, it shouldn't be that hard, but it is. And they're not going to do it voluntarily, but you're going to have phone AI bots that call and make those calls. And then the payers are going to have their own bots, and it's going to be robots talking to robots. And that's great. They'll have a grand old time. They'll collect the information. They'll input it into your practice management software. And in the meantime, you have RPA that'll scrape all the data from their actual portals and also insert it into the practice management. So you can get all the coverage tables and all the information that you need without having human intervention. So those are the things that AI is going to provide a lot of value to in a very short period of time and already is working on.
You just mentioned the point, Mike, that I can talk about for hours, not hours, days, about, the AI receptionist, because that's a business that we're running, and also about the AI adoption, not on the clinical side, not on the industry side, but on the patient side. Exactly as you said, so many people call up and they're like, I want to talk to a human. I don't want to talk to AI. And we see a lot of that every day. What do you think it takes for patients and normal people to adopt AI besides the industry?
Has to be fast. And so I think people don't really think of the speed piece in everyday conversation. I'm sure you guys all think about the speed piece, but you don't even notice, I think, a lot of the times if you're querying an LLM that depending on the prompt that you put forth, ChatGPT, especially now with some of the newest versions that have logic thinking that they didn't have before, it takes time to generate the result, and the compute power behind that is significant right now. And so I think what it's going to take is a number of things. First off, like the compute needed to run AI models is going to have to become less expensive. I don't necessarily know that it's going to, the need is going to decrease, but the cost has to come down so that you can increase the power so that you can have faster speed. Because when you and I are talking, Masood, if I call you and I ask you a question, you're responding immediately. And I go, okay, I'm talking to a human. But when you're talking to somebody that's AI, there's that slight second that delay while it's waiting and generating the next most predictable response to provide to you. And in that delay, which seems very, very small, that's where the delight of the patient is made or broken. And so that's, to me, the current obstacle in getting broader adoption with patients to enjoy the experience that they have with an AI. And so as that gap closes, which it already has been, and as the service that the AI provides is able to be expanded to handle scenarios that may not be your standard scenario of just, hey, let me schedule an appointment. Here's my insurance card information. Here's my name and phone number with like a minimum viable amount of data being collected. That's when the value is going to start to skyrocket, at least from my perspective.
Yeah, that's quite right. And to your point, like latency is one of the most important things, at least in what we do. But there are many other things that you have to take care of and make sure that, the information that's being given, because patients call with many different queries, like there are thousands upon thousands of different things that they call about. And, training your AI to be able to handle all of them efficiently, just like how a human does, oh man, that's gonna take a while.
Do you remember like in the early stages of voice AI, I think there was, I forget the airline, but they had a passenger that called and the airline just gave, the AI gave all the wrong information. And then there was like a lawsuit of like whether or not they actually had to hold the AI accountable for the misinformation that it was just spewing forth. Like, hey, all your flights are free now. Like, oh, that's cool. This is the best airline ever. Like, why are you honoring this? So I don't think we're there anymore. Like we've advanced so far past that, but there are so many scenarios. Humans are complex, which is why like, the general intelligence AI is probably so far away. It's still very much let me present to you what the next most viable option is or the next prediction of what this response should be based off of the model that we run things on. It's still not like actually doing the thinking on its own. And I don't know if we actually wanted to get there because that's kind of scary also. But yeah, I think that there's still the promise of AI is huge. It will absolutely fulfill that promise. Different companies will fill it at different rates. And then the other component, and you guys may agree or disagree with this, I think it's controversial for some, is a lot of people are developing and building features that it then becomes difficult to make an actual company. And so like the evaluation of, do I have a feature that should be tied into something larger, or is this something that I can actually build a business upon? What is the size of that business? And then at what point do we pivot, and maybe not even just pivot, maybe add additional things that accentuate to make a product suite that then allows for there to be more value for the end purchaser. And I think what we will see over time is some consolidation taking place with AI companies. You'll have practice management companies, you'll have patient communication tool companies starting to purchase and acquire other AI features to put into their tech stack when they don't have that AI building muscle, because it's so many of the legacy, even SaaS companies don't think in terms of AI in the way that you all probably do. And, it's a different motion to doing things. And so there's going to be, I think, acquisitions and more kind of mergers and purchases by different companies to round out their product set. And I think some people will also find themselves that they've built a feature and not an actual business.
Well, thank you so much, Mike. I'm going to let Sarah ask a question. I just had one small question. Is that a Cybertruck on your back?
It is a Cybertruck. So, okay. Also controversial these days, anything related to Tesla or Elon Musk. So I'll try to stay away from that topic as a whole. However, 5 years ago, I used to drink. I don't drink anymore. And I woke up one morning and I had an email and it says, congratulations on your order of a Cybertruck. And I was like, oh my God, what did I do? So I thought I bought it. And I open up the email, and it turns out it's only $100 deposit. Smart me, after having too many drinks. Didn't go too crazy, so that was good. And then I was in queue for a Cybertruck. So I was like, well, I got one on order. Sounds cool. Maybe it'll be awesome. It was supposed to be $50,000 when it was released. And I was like, I'm in. I'm going to buy myself a Cybertruck. This thing, the windows break when you throw a rock at it. You got to have one. And so I stayed on the list for forever, and it became very apparent that it wasn't going to be released in production anytime soon. And my wife was like, listen, babe, for Christmas, she bought me a Cybertruck because she said, this is probably the only one you're ever going to own. And so here you go. And that was my Christmas present. And she was right. She's wise in many ways. And it is the only Cybertruck I'm ever going to own. I did get to the front of the line, and I could have purchased, they had pretty much doubled the price. And I said, well, do I want a stainless steel refrigerator on wheels, or should I go a different path? And I was like, I don't know what I'd be trying to compensate for driving around in that thing, other than trying to make my 11-year-old think I'm cool. He still thinks it's awesome. So yes, that's the Cybertruck behind me and the story behind how it ended up there.
No, that's great, man. I mean, both you didn't spend $50,000, and also you still have a Cybertruck. So
yeah, and it was a interesting experience in thinking that I ordered a car overnight. So glad I didn't do that.
That is so funny, and I don't even know why. Every time I see a Cybertruck, I'm like, ew. But you know what? I don't even care. It's like I'm following the masses, and so if people want a Cybertruck, have a Cybertruck. But I do have a question. Well, first of all, you had mentioned, how people use AI and don't change it. So one little tip that hopefully everybody will listen to is that if you are using ChatGPT to create content, which is fine, probably want to read it. And if it says DSO, parentheses, dental support organization, definitely take that out, because we all know what that means. I've seen so many people, and it's that's a telltale sign of ChatGPT. But
yes.
My question, and Masood, this is for all of you guys, AI, my COO first came to me about it. I was like, absolutely not. It's terrifying. I don't like it. I don't want to do it. It seems too hard. And now, of course, it's, we are adopting it in different ways and using it in our company. But I feel like, is there still fear? Are people still afraid of this? What's going to move them from being afraid? Are they going to be forced? What do you guys think, or how in the dental industry can we help people feel more or feel less afraid?
I think it's wording it as fear works in the sense that it is still an unknown, and I think people are intimidated by trying to use it and don't have a full understanding of what the available benefits are. So I do think that ultimately people will be forced to, because the most efficient, effective employees within any organization are going to be those that are assisted by AI. It's going to become really apparent. So you're going to be like, wow, how is this person so much more effective than this person? And then when you start like figuring it out, they had agency and they went out on their own to learn how to do different things. And it was like self-taught. Over time, it's going to become part of like new hire curriculum. Like, this is how we use AI in our organization. Like, it's just lagging. It's not even lagging. It's just, it's changed so quickly that people weren't coming to terms with the fact that it's here to stay, but it is here to stay. It's not going anywhere. And so I think there's a real opportunity now in the dental space for those folks that embrace it to have an edge moving forward. And I had a gentleman on my podcast. His name's Jeff Woods, and he has a company called the AI Driven Leader. He wrote a book about it. He has a really great background, but his entire approach, and I really enjoyed talking to him, it had nothing to do with dental, but it was using AI as a strategic partner. And so he shared some of the different prompts, but his kind of premise is take the biggest problem that you're facing today and then think, can AI help me with this? And so you create a prompt, you lay out all the elements that you are currently facing, give it as much information as you potentially can. Then you ask it to ask you 3 questions. And you can frame it when you're designing your prompt. So he gave one example and was like, listen, I want you to answer as if you were an investment banker with, X in this space with this type of expertise. So you can kind of narrow down the reaction that you get. And then ask me 3 questions that you want to know. And then give me 10 unconventional suggestions on how to solve this problem. And so there's the turning in of AI to be a thought partner versus just something that is giving you answers on things. And so I think in the DSO space, first off, you're not going to get your team to use it if you're not using it yourself. So you need to take an active approach to deciding that it's important. Everybody wants to put it in their products, which is great. But all these people put it in their products and they don't actually use it like on a day-to-day basis. And it's like, if you don't understand what you're dealing with, then you're kind of jumping the gun and trying to implement it in a product. And so I think it's just going to take a mindset shift overall. I think as people see success stories, that'll be ultimately what moves the needle. And then it'll kind of reach a point of critical mass, and the whole like a tech adoption curve crossing the chasm. You've got the early adopters, the late adopters. It'll follow that same type of path that most technology does, and we're just not quite there yet.
Thank you. I was just curious. Belief has to come before behavior, right? So you have to, really help people to understand what the benefits are. I mean, I feel like a lot of companies in our space are dealing with that. Like, they'll sell to the DSO, but then at the compliance at the practice level, they're just like not using it because they don't understand why they should be using it. So
100%. And so DSO software implementations have a tendency to have that disconnect. And that's because you're selling to the stakeholders that see the value because they're the ones that think high level strategically, but the product itself needs to be implemented in the practice. The people in the practice, oftentimes, depending on the size of the DSO, had zero influence or engagement in the process of choosing or making that decision. So one of the things we do is we've created collateral for all the different roles within an individual office, like Planet DDS, what's in it for me? And so you're an office manager. What sort of benefits can you expect to gain by the implementation of this software? You're a dental assistant. You're a dentist. Like, here are the things. This is the reason why, as a corporate entity, a support organization for a DSO, this is why we chose this software. And here are the tools that you need to know so that we can gain buy-in across our organization. Because if you forget the why part, like to your point, Sarah, then there's no motivation to make the change. And so change management is all about explaining why. I mean, business in general is about explaining why to people over and over again, and recognizing that if you forget that really, really important step, this isn't like, at your home where, you're telling your children to do something and it's like, why do you do it? Well, it's because I'm dad. I told you to. I mean, that's not great parenting advice. Like, I wouldn't do that really. Anyways, the why is important. But if you treat your team like that in a business setting and just like, we're doing this, and you forget the whole part of like, why, then you're going to be unsuccessful with those endeavors.
Mike, I really had a quick question. How's been the AI adoption with the new features that you've added? Like, what has been the feedback from your customers? And also, I had one more question. Feel free to not disclose it. Are you charging more for what you've added?
100%. Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, we have a business to run and an organization to continue to innovate for our customers. So there are enhancements and features that take place inside the software that are not monetized, and there are those that are. And so the AI one is a monetized feature that does cost extra if you want to, in the same way that if you went to Pearl directly to purchase Pearl, you would have to pay for that. You're just buying it through Planet DDS. There are other features, like we released something for referral management, which is like a black hole for many, many DSOs. And inside Denticon, you can actually schedule on the calendar, on the schedule of another office that provides the specialty. Let's say it's an endo office directly if they're within your network. And you can also receive referrals from outside of your organization from people that don't use Denticon. And you're able to track all of that information and communicate in a HIPAA compliant way between the practices. We release that, no additional cost. So it depends on what the feature actually is. And we determine like whether or not we're going to charge something additional for it. As far as AI adoption, I think that it still is early stage. I mean, we're seeing pretty rapid adoption now. 85% of Denticon clients are associated with multi-location groups. So we really do specialize in multi-location. We're not trying to be all things for all people. DSOs generally are pretty savvy to AI adoption, particularly radiographic AI. I think we're seeing more adoption on voice, on calls, on chatbots. Like that's kind of the new wave that's taking place after the radiographic piece kind of opened the door, I think, for that initial conversation. As far as like percentage wise, I would think that over the next 5 years, you'll see like 80% using radiographic AI. I still think only about 25 to 30% of dental organizations are using some type of AI. So it's still a relatively low overall adoption rate for AI as a technology in the broader sense. There's also people that say they're using AI, but they're just using RPA. RPA is not AI. It's just robotic process automation. It's like you're replicating what a human being can do through scripts. It's a totally different type of technology, but it's gotten lumped into what AI actually can.
That's great. Dr. Milad, can we discuss your viewpoints on AI? Because I was talking to Dr. Milad like last week, and then he was like, I don't believe Pearl is providing any kind of value to doctors. Like as a practicing dentist, he was saying that like with the graphs they give and the radiographies that I see from them, that's something easy for me to recognize myself.
I love this conversation. So let me
hear your perspective.
To Dr. Milad.
Yeah.
No, he honestly, like for, again, it goes to just the conversation that you were just having as far as like the being adaptable to the changes. I was talking to Masood, I said, companies like Pearl, I think they're pretty good for the patient. I think it's good for the patient to see because people are very visual to what they see. Because if I pull up the x-ray in my office and show the patient, hey, you have a cavity here, you have this here, you have that here, the patient is not going to understand because they're not technical. They didn't go to dental school. And you show them, they're like, I don't care about this. You just tell me what I need to do, I do it. Or a lot of time we use the iTero or the Trios to scan and show them their scan and say, hey, you have cavities here. So I think presenting it to the patient is helpful. But the one thing I told Master is that for me, for example, a lot of time I feel when I use the AI, I felt like it just kind of caused me to debate between what I'm going to diagnose as a clinician and what the AI presents back to me. Because I think that if as a dentist, you're relying solely on the tool like Pearl and not really focusing on your own education, I think that's where I was telling Master. I said, because I see a lot of dentists that they do that. That like they see something instead of saying, okay, I'm going to watch this because the AI told them, oh, this is a cavity right here. But in fact, I see patient coming in and they say, hey, doc, I want a second opinion. And I go in there, I'm like, I can watch this for another 2 years, or may not be a cavity there. So in my opinion, I think like AI is great. I think it's good because it helps I pay for the patient to understand. As a clinician, I was telling him, I think the dentists need to like not focus so much to use it just as a future. You know, if you're debating on something, but to solely make a decision, I think that's not a good idea.
I agree. It's not a good idea. Hopefully none of the AI companies are advocating for replacement of clinical assessment by trained dentists who have gone to school. I don't think anybody would make that argument. And then so you actually nailed what I believe from myself to be the most value that you received from radiographic AI, and that's the trust that you can build with the patient. When you're diagnosing something that you see Dr. Milad, you're like, hey, here's a cavity right here. And you can say, but you don't have to just take my word for it. Let me show you, we're actually using AI technology, especially with younger patients and with younger generation. That's going to go a long way into building trust and credibility in that engagement, where they're going to be more likely to accept the treatment plan that you put forth for them. Now, if you see something that, to your point, you're like, I can watch this for 2 more years. Most of the AI providers now, whether it be Overjet, Vidya, Pearl, allow you to take that out of the findings that you are presenting. So I think Pearl was brilliant in their term of second opinion. That is literally how it should be thought of. It is decision assistance. It is not clinical diagnosis, nor should you think that it is. And so when they first came out, all these AI companies, it was like, you can increase production, case acceptance, and increase by this percentage. Let's be real. Does anybody believe, like the software companies, when they throw out some random percentages, like you're like, production increases 25% once you install this practice management software? Like, no, nobody really like believes all. Like, individual case studies can be impactful and powerful of one person's experience, but the real value for AI is the credibility, the building trust, and also consistency of care across an entire organization, which can be challenging, especially if you have a lot of new associates and people that are just recently out of dental school. If you want to have some ability to control and understand what's being diagnosed, what's being treatment planned across a broad swath of your organization, you get that ability using some of these AI tools that can then provide you data and analytics surrounding that, and doctor comparisons, standard kind of benchmarking across different practices with how many cavities are seen, how many crowns are completed. Like, that's valuable for an organization who wants to ensure that their patients are all receiving similar experiences.
Yeah, and I also think, Mr. Mike, to your point as well, I think when you have, tools like Pearl, I think it also reduces the patient wanting to go to other dentists to get second opinion, because I have so many patients that comes in, they're like, I want a second opinion. I want a second opinion. And I think that's another thing that has so much value to it, is just when you show the patient what you're saying based on the usage of that AI, it automatically makes that patient saying, what's the point of me going down the street to get a second opinion? It's already there. The doctor is seeing it, the computer is seeing it. I think it also reduces the patient wasting time going from office to office.
Yeah, my dentist does not have AI. And in the rare times when I actually show up at the appointment, when it's been scheduled, I sit there in the chair and I wish that they did. And so then they have to hear me talking about a bunch of random dental stuff. And they're like, dude, this guy again. The dental software sales guy, yay, he's in the chair. I wish he would have canceled this appointment too. But I would have loved if they had radiographic AI, because it would be, because I'm a nerd. It would be great to see this. It would be awesome. So, I think that there's benefit. It might just not be what the anticipated benefit was. A lot of people are doing really great stuff too with incipient lesions and curodont related to AI as well. And that's been kind of a big push in the marketplace that I find like just kind of a whole fascinating thing about remineralizing teeth is like kind of cool. So there's different paths that can be taken out there, and there's benefit that can be had. But if you're thinking that it's going to replace the need to provide clinical expertise, that's not it.
And Mike, just one last question I had. How much do you think these AI advancements from different types, like from Pearl, that's going to increase the case acceptance and patients more willing to do treatments, to other types of things like what we do, AI receptionist stuff, how much do you think it's going to grow the industry as a whole? Because right now, with any AI, the thing that they have to talk about all the time in order to be able to get clients is ROI. After you get this, how much more business are you going to bring into your practice?
Yeah.
So when you look at it collectively with, 200,000 clinics overall in the US, and considering that out of those 200,000, like maybe, 20 to 30% of them are going to adopt AI in the next 5 years. And then considering the fact that each of them is going to have, from any kind of adoption, if it's Pearl or if it's other things, they're going to have a 30 to 40% ROI from that. Don't you think it's going to be a huge growth just with this, with these kind of new technologies that are coming around? What's your take on it?
Yeah, I mean, AI, let's take even a broader look at it. AI across the economy is going to be like a massive productivity unlock. I think it's going to be, honestly, it could be the force multiplier of what gets us out of the debt that we're in, because it can create so much more economic opportunity than exists today. I know a lot of people think like, okay, well, self-driving cars, now you're going to get rid of all the Uber drivers. The economy has a really interesting way of adapting and finding new roles and positions when new technologies arrive. Like, let's not forget that those Uber drivers didn't exist 15 years ago. So they were something before that, and now they'll have to be something after it. And so I think, when you kind of focus it more on dental, you'll see some of the same things. There's still a massive problem of getting the population in the United States to go to the dentist. Like, what is it, 50% or something like that are actually regularly seeking dental care. So logically, it's like there should never be a demand issue in any dental practice, as long as it's in a location that obviously has a population large enough to support that practice. And I think that, AI is going to be able to automate things that hopefully are able to attract more patients. I think we're going to see new materials, new developments. Like it could create new treatments, like through the knowledge that you get, like separate and apart from like a tool, but actually something that is a new way of actually practicing dentistry. And I know we have already seen like some of the robot dentistry things and, some of that take place, which is kind of wild to think about. It's like, who was the first one that volunteers? Like, yes, I'm going to open my mouth and let this robot do its thing. But it's going to be psychologically normalized with people in the same way that self-driving cars will be and other things. And so, it's going to be interesting. I don't pretend to have the crystal ball that's going to be able to answer those questions definitively. I don't think any of us know. It's going to be something that we're not even thinking about, that's going to unlock such a huge opportunity that doesn't even exist today. That's going to be obvious in the moment that is not obvious to us today, but it's going to be really, really interesting to watch. And I think it's going to all happen both faster and slower than we expect, if that makes sense. So yeah, that's kind of how I think about it.
Yeah,
Well,
one little wish.
Go ahead.
Can I just say that? Yeah, I was just going to say, every time that I think about the advancements right now, I always wish I was born 100 years later, because right now everything is advancing, but 100 years later, it's going to be crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Man, I'm the
I don't know.
opposite. I wish I'm happy
wish you
that
could go back?
I'm happy that iPhones did not exist when I was in high school and college, because,
Why,
and that's all I'm
Sarah?
going to say.
Say
Please,
please elaborate on that.
Yeah, say more. No.
No.
We did that as an icebreaker at one of our events, is if you could choose to go forward in time or back in time, what would you choose? There were not too many futurists, honestly. Most people, I think there's some safety in knowing what had already occurred, and some fear in like, am I going to end up in the Terminator and Skynet is going to be sending drones after me 100 years in the future? So, who knows? But yeah, it is really interesting times. And honestly, it's always been interesting times. Like I remember like reflecting when I was in high school, which was a long time ago now, about my grandparents who like saw the invention of the car and then the automobile. And then, we lived through, some of us on this call, the invention of the computer and the modem and the internet. And, then it's the phone in your pocket that is also a computer. And then, now it's AI. And there's these, really like seismic shifts in technology that continue to take place and show no sign of slowing up. So it's really fascinating. And we could get into a whole debate of whether or not it's good, but it is. And so hopefully there's additional really amazing technologies that, solve for climate challenges, energy challenges that we have, and, that we use some of that ingenuity to solve really big issues that are out there today. And I think that AI has the opportunity to do so.
That's awesome, Mr. Mike. Well, before we close out, I do want to give your organization a huge compliment. After dental school, I got a job out in Iowa, and the very first job out of dental school, I got a job and the office was using Denticon. And coming out of dental school, they were using this crappy old system that was like, you felt like somebody was cracking it from the back. And I'm like, yo, what is going on? Denticon was truly like so amazing. I mean, even to this day, I always tell anybody, I'm like, Denticon was truly like, for me as a user, someone that uses it day in, day out, truly like one of the best, software out there, at least for me as a user. I think it's such a user friendly. Like you said, everything is in one page, one click away, populates the notes. You don't have to go anywhere. And I think you guys are doing an amazing job. So I want to say thank you for what you're doing for the industry. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for the kind words. Makes my job and my team's job much easier when you've got a phenomenal product that you can bring to market. And, our product team and developers and engineers have really done great work. And even from 5 years ago when I joined the company to what the product does now, it's incredible. So anybody that hasn't seen it recently or has some notion of, this is not your mother's Denticon anymore, your grandmother's or whoever's. We've also acquired Cloud9. We acquired Apterix. We have marketing capabilities as well in the software now. So, it's really a pretty advanced tool that is also open, and we play nice in the sandbox with others. So we have lots of integrations and we have lots of partnerships, and we're continuing to expand those. So yeah, I appreciate you guys having me on. It's been a lot of fun. Well, my favorite color is blue, by the way. Inquiring minds wanted to know. You asked at the beginning. I really felt like we were leaving you hanging there, Sarah, and Masood. So I want to make sure we didn't leave without answering that critical question.
Thank you.
I was wearing dark blue all over. So maybe that's why you were looking at me the whole time.
That's right. That's right. So,
thank you so much for coming on, Mike.
Appreciate it.
Mike, appreciate it. This was great. Very much appreciate your time, Mike. Thank you. Sarah, you as well. Of course. Thanks for joining us this for our second round. And Dr. Milad, as always, and Masood, as always. Thank you, guys. And that's it. We'll wrap it up there. Thanks, everyone, for joining us.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thanks, everyone. Cheers. Bye-bye.